after the epic win of EC3, you wonder what they're going to do next week, which is today. I'll say this. TNA decided that what they're dealing with FCW is going to take precedent over what's going to happen to their current champion. Because that's what I'm feeling. You understand what I mean in a minute. Let's do these matches. And there were 9 matches on this show. There was a lot of matches. But I also believe that even though there was a lot of matches on this 2-hour show, most of it was pretty balanced. Not all of it, but most. Let's get to Matt Hardy versus the Dirty Heels. And Matt pretty much says at the very beginning of the show, while the epic EC3 says his bit, look, I want my shot. Now I want to say this, and Dirty Heels won. We already know this. But when it comes to Matt Hardy, I want to say this. Matt compared to Jeff Hardy. Jeff has managed to transcend being a mid-carder to a main eventer. He did that in WWE, and he did this here in TNA. Of course, he fucked up because of the drug problems, but he managed to get away with it. He managed to do it. When it comes to Jeff, I believe that most people believe he's overhyped in some cases. A few people probably believe he's underestimated. I believe he's somewhere in the middle. Matt Hardy does good work in the ring, even though his hips look like they're pretty much locked in place the way he walks. No offense. I got the same problem. I got a locked hip. But he's a middle of the road, pretty good mid-carder. Actually, he's a very good mid-carder. Not the greatest, but he's a very good mid-carder. He can easily go to the mid-card to upper card with no issues. Main event, that is still a question if he can actually pull that off. And I believe with TNA in the situation they're in, that they don't really have many main eventers. They don't. Maybe 4 or 5 main eventers. And the mid-card is so lacking, along with the main event lacking to a certain extent. I wouldn't be surprised that one day they may consider throwing him into the main title. Now, he could be easily a transitional champion. But the question is going to be, while he's a transitional champion that first time, because I doubt they're going to let him keep the belt, unless he really does something that brings in the people in the seats, and the merch being sold. If he sells big merch and a lot of people come in just to see him, they'll keep him. Or they'll even keep him in the main event. That's what I believe is going to happen eventually with Matt Hardy. And I believe that it should happen. Throw him in the main event with the title and see if he can run with it. Sometimes people who have been in the mid-card for a long time who really does have great potential is not usually given an opportunity. Ergo with the WWE, they just don't do it. So that is what I believe. Next, Drew versus what... this upsets me because Drew Galloway really should be doing something more than being used as a plot device for an Abyss and a Koya. Mind you, I'm glad to see Koya may actually be doing something. But I felt Drew deserved better. He did a very good segment with Eli. And you saw Micah wasn't allowed to talk because Micah just isn't a good, strong character. He's not polished. If he's only been working about 3 or 4 years, he needs more time to develop. He's just not there. You can hear it in his voice. He's just not there. But Eli sounds so... Sorry, my throat's really messed up still. Eli is just so presentable. He's highly polished. Am I saying Drew McIntyre? I like to see him as Drew McIntyre. Drew Galloway is also very polished. I do believe that Eli sounds a little bit better than Drew. And I may believe this because of how they've been spotlighting Drew. Eli has done some very good work in the ring, and he's talked very well. But Drew is the one who's been given the lead, and they have not treated him well. So that kind of brought him down a little bit for me personally. And that's the reason why Eli looks about the same level as him, or in some cases slightly better. But it does not believe, I don't believe, I can't believe I said don't believe. I'm sorry. Drew Galloway is a main eventer. He can do the work. And I would love him in a kilt. When he was in FCW, before it turned to TNA, well, you know, FCW, then they went to TNA, kind of taking FCW, you know, taking over for it. He was there in a freaking kilt. And I want to see him come out in a fucking kilt and say, hey, I'm Drew Galloway. Woo! I lift my kilt and I let you know I'm ready to fight. I want to see him come out as a fighting Scotsman in a freaking kilt that will beat the fucking shit out of people like a Roddy Piper. He didn't give a damn. He came in a fucking kilt with his trunks under it and he kicked freaking ass. That's what I want to see from him. That's what I want from a Drew Galloway. He's not a bad talker. He goes very well in the ring. Give him the moniker of a Sinister Scotsman again. I believe that might actually work here. The Sinister Scotsman was used by WWE. Why not use it here in TNA? Now, oh, and seeing Koya and the Abyss, I'm not really fond of the Abyss, but if Koya's going to give it a chance to try and see if he can actually get over with the crowd, I'm alright with it. Anderson versus Bram. We now have a feud with Anderson and we have a feud with Bram. Was it a strong building to the feud? No. This was just thrown together, it's obvious. But at least Bram's going to get spotlighted and Anderson will have something to do. But it does worry me about Bram because I think he's had now 4 or 5 re-signing of his fucking contract in a year. What the hell? 4 or 5 times within, I believe this year, he has re-signed his contract. I said this before and I'll say it again. Either he has a drug problem or he has an attitude problem. It's got to be one of those. You could say maybe he has a family problem. Yeah, maybe. But I doubt that it would have him re-sign more than once. If his family's in trouble, he had a problem with his contract and he says, look, I need more money because my family's in trouble. I really work hard for you. Please, can you renegotiate it? Give me a little bit more money. Fine. That's one time. But 2 or 3 or 4 more times? Are you serious? There's something wrong with Bram. And if he keeps this up, if he gets another 4 or 5 more contracts by the end of this year, going to the next one, he does not deserve to be on TNA. He needs to go. No matter if he's very talented, he needs to solve his problems, either his drinking or his attitude problem. But I am glad to see that there's a feud. Now here's something that I know you guys are going to say, what? You actually are happy to see this? Yes, I am. As I always say, I'm not a total lover of incredibly great grappling wrestling. I am a total lover of grappling wrestling that goes with a storyline. If you don't have a reason for the grappling, what the hell do you care about the storyline? If you don't have a good storyline, what the hell do you care about the grappling? You must have them hand in hand. Jessie Godderz and Robbie E is a good example of 2 mid-carders who may not be very good at all. They're basic jobbers. But if you give them a decent storyline, the people will actually go for it. Even if they're not really strong on it, at least they will show a good caring for it. Think about this. WWE, in the mid-card, how many feuds do you know that weren't built within a week? And doesn't have a first match, then a second match, then maybe talking, then they have the rubber match. Or maybe they do the first match, then they have talking, then the second match, then maybe talking, maybe. And then maybe a fight, which has always been telegraphed, and then they have the rubber match either on a Raw or maybe on the pre-show of some pay-per-view. When was the last time you saw a feud that took months, that wasn't in the main title scene? Rarely. This is a feud that is in the mid-card with 2 guys, yes, they're jobbers, but at least they built it properly. And yeah, Jessie Godderz isn't the best. And neither is Robbie E. I never really liked Robbie E that much. But I will say this, at least they give me a reason to care to watch them. Because they gave me a reason, they gave me a history, and what did we get? We get Jessie Godderz winning. But here's the problem with me with Jessie, 2 things. One, the ending of that match was stupid. He shouldn't have gotten into the chair, Boston Crab. He should have just done the Boston Crab on Robbie E. Hell, he could have put the chair on the back of the head of Robbie E to make sure he couldn't move anywhere. And then he does a very deep, back-arching Boston Crab. That would have been better than him being in the chair and Robbie E passing out. Of course, that's actually pretty good because that keeps the match going. It keeps their feud going. But seeing him in the chair was stupid. Here's the second thing that's incredibly stupid on TNA's part. You got the Pope. D'Angelo Dinero, the man is doing great work on the mic. He is giving the man the moniker, the modern day Adonis. I know many of you are going to say, I don't give a fuck about him being the modern day Adonis or the man. I know. But if you're trying to build new stars, you got to do something. You got to go somewhere. And I believe Jessie the Adonis, or Jessie, the modern day Adonis, Jessie Godderz, would sound better than Jessie the man Godderz. Come on. It's stupid. Your commentary team are trying to get you over. The Adonis lock, or the Adonis crab, I believe he said. The Adonis crab, and that is from the Pope. Why are they not listening to the commentator team and see if it would stick? Make sure that the announcers say the modern day Adonis, Jessie Godderz. Change his cloak to the Adonis. Why not play on it? I think that's a lost opportunity, even if it's for a minute, middle of the road, or maybe slightly less great wrestler in a Jessie Godderz. The Lashley versus Tyrus. The only reason I'm saying this is because Lashley doesn't usually go up against someone bigger than himself. He hasn't gone up the abyss in quite a while. So seeing him go up against Tyrus was an actually refreshing thing. Even if the match wasn't that good. It wasn't. But it's still good to see this. And I say this again. Tyrus, Abyss, put them together as a tag team that can be destructive. I know that Tyrus has done that before with the Funkasauruses. I know. But they never were dark. Never. Put these two together. They're both heels. See what happens. You got nothing to lose. You can break them up. Or you can have them feud against one another later. I'm just saying. Here's something you're probably not going to care about. It is Velvet Sky versus Madison Rayne. Madison Rayne still holds the quiet but strong moniker. Strong but silent type. I know people, I've heard Fool Killer, and I believe even the Sleg Daddy doesn't even give a damn. They believe she's no better than before. I'm seeing this in a perspective that we normally don't see her stay quiet all the time. She's almost zero talking. No talking, no facial expression. We don't normally get that from a Velvet, even if we have seen her over and over and over again. And she's going through all the knockouts. She's going to go through probably Brooke sooner or later. She's going to probably go through Kong and the Dollhouse eventually. But at least it's something different from her. She's holding to her chosen character. And she's using the stunner. That's something you don't see from her. She uses something similar to a pedigree, which I never did like anyway. So seeing this at least is something different. And I'm going to say this, in comparisons by wrestlers, not by company. A Velvet Sky and a Nikki Bella. I got to say this because I've already said Nikki Bella, if she wanted to become something better, she needs to go away from WWE, come back, improve her craft even more than she has, and hopefully they'll do something with her. But in the condition she's in, she has improved her ring work. Her talking still hasn't improved much. Now, if you compare the two, the one who talks the best is going to be Velvet. She just is a better talker than Nikki Bella. When it comes to in-ring work, we've seen more Nikki Bella than we've seen Velvet Sky. In this new moniker of Velvet, we've seen not as much. So, of course, Nikki Bella has more exposure, so she looks better than a Velvet. And if you're going to actually go with looks, I mean, Nikki ain't an ugly woman. There's a reason John chose her ass, because of those big titties, that nice butt, a good face. But if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably choose Velvet Sky, because her boobs are just as big, she's got a pretty good looking face, a pretty good looking body, and she knows how to talk. So I probably would be enjoying her more than a Nikki Bella. But it doesn't mean neither one of them have improved. There's improvement in both. I'm not talking about the companies. Now, Jeff Jarrett. I'm very worried about that. I'm going to do a debate of the week. It'll probably be after this one. And it'll be about him talking about Global Force Wrestling kind of feeling like a new National Wrestling Alliance. I'm not going to go any farther than that. I'm leaving it as it is. Finally, the 2 matches that are left you care about. And then the betrayal. EC3 versus 2 original jobbers that he faced when he first started his run of undefeated. Norver, and Shark Boy. It was good to see Shark Boy give me a shell, yeah, and hit the fuck out of EC3. But the hardcore American icon kicked that ass so lovely. Also, he didn't talk too bad on commentary either. But when it comes down to it, it is his rematch against Kurt Angle where he demanded his rematch clause there. And here's the key of the entire situation. As I've said before, seeing that EC3 really needs to become more of a credible champion. If you have him heal so much, like he doesn't have the balls to be able to handle anybody, eventually it gets tiring. And we're not going to like him. He hasn't reached that point yet, but it's eventually going to happen. And I believe that TNA is actually going to address it to a certain extent. Because after the DQ of Kurt Angle, Dixie comes out. Dixie Carter. Comparing Dixie Carter to a Stephanie, there's no real... I mean, I know Dixie is about 10 or 12 years older than a Stephanie. So her face isn't as young and as vibrant as it usually is. Like someone who's in their late 40s compared to someone who's in their late 30s. So essentially, if she was 10 years younger, I really believe Dixie is one hell of a good looking woman. She would easily contend with a Stephanie. She doesn't have a bad body. Her boobs are not that small. That's just how I feel about it, ladies and gentlemen, being an old man myself. But seeing that she came out, turned face, and basically betrayed her nephew, saying simply, we need someone here to make sure this show is staying on target. There's going to be someone coming, and it's not going to be me, and it's definitely not going to be you. Scares the living fuck out of me. For the simple reason is this. For the last 7 to 8 months, maybe 9 months, TNA has had no sign of a GM. And in some cases, it's been actually very refreshing. You don't have someone coming out as general manager to make the matches. And don't take the spotlight away from the wrestlers. That's one of the things I've liked about TNA in the last near 9 months. They've had no GM. It's been the wrestlers who's been making the decisions. And the refs. But now that we may get ourselves a GM again, it makes me very wary. Could it be a Jeff Jarrett? Oh my God. Could it be? It can't be Sting because he's under contract with WWE. So it's not going to be Sting. Even though he's not there, doesn't mean that he'll probably come back, unless he is coming back short term. Because you don't know if he's going to do something at SummerSlam, or he's going to be doing something on Survivor Series, or Hell in a Cell. We just don't know. So I don't believe it's going to be Sting. It could be Mick Foley. You never know. I'm hoping it's not the Hulk Hogan or Eric Bischoff. I don't want to see neither of them. They buried the show in 2010 to 11 by taking away the 6-sided ring and all that kind of shit. I don't want to see them there. But you wonder who could it be? Who could be the one that could do it? So it's very hard to tell who. But this is just my point of view. What is yours? So I hope you enjoyed the Zane view. Please give me a comment below. Watch for my debate of the week about FCW trying to be... Oh, wait a minute. No, FCW. I'm sorry. I'm getting confused with all these different things. Global Force Wrestling trying to be a National Wrestling Alliance. Bite off. Have a good day and have a good night. Peace!